From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Rebuilding from Hurricane Helene.
I'm Charles Denny. The rebuild goes on in Upper East Tennessee from devastating floods. What the University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture is doing to help people, pets, and the environment.
We add up the numbers on fiscal year 2024 when it comes to ag exports, as a possible increase in tariffs is already being felt by ag markets.
Trying to bring in a lot before any potential closing of the door, if you will.
Why some say a tariff increase, especially on China, could actually be a good thing right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. President-elect Trump has talked about increasing tariffs on foreign goods, particularly on those from China. He has argued such import taxes would help keep manufacturing jobs in the U.S., shrink the federal deficit, and help lower food prices. The possible tariff increase already having an impact on commodity markets. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. And Michelle, market watchers are keeping a close eye on this.
Well, they are, Clinton, and actually the ag markets have held up considerably well under tariff threats made by the Trump administration, especially regarding China and Mexico. Now, market analysts say this is partially due to ideas of continued end-user front-loading before Trump officially takes office. Plus, the U.S. may be better prepared to handle a trade war than it was in 2018. With the threat of tariffs and a trade war, ag markets, especially soybeans, were bracing for fallout tied to the re-election of former President Trump. However, analysts say the markets have been holding together due to anticipation of continued strong demand before January 20th.
Are we going to see a big push of exports, between now and mid-January, trying to front run those tariffs just out of fear with the unknown, not knowing exactly, what those actual numbers are going to be?
End users have been buying soybean oil with Trump's threat to ban or tax used cooking oil imports from China. And China has ramped up soybean purchases with threats of up to 60% tariffs.
Chinese have been very aggressive buyers over the last couple of months, trying to bring in a lot before any potential closing of the door, if you will.
But even Mexico may be concerned with campaign rhetoric of 25% tariffs if the government doesn't help solve the border crisis.
I believe Mexico and Japan and some of the other players have been maybe front running this election a little bit as well.
Soybean farmers still feel the sting of the China trade war in 2018 when prices had an 8 handle on them. But it also came with a phase 1 deal, so there's hope a Trump administration will hold a hard line on Beijing.
But I think long term it'll be positive for soybeans because, look, they don't buy much else from us. And so I think Trump will hold their feet to the fire when it comes to soybeans. And but that's going to be longer term stuff. We're talking well out into 2025.
Remember, some Chinese tariffs remain from 2018, and China's more dependent on South America. Plus, the U.S. diversified its export portfolio, especially for soybeans, which may mute the impact of a trade war.
The industry made a lot of changes after the 2018-2019 trade war. There was a lot of production moved out of China into Vietnam and Cambodia and places like that.
And Brugler says Trump plans to use the tariffs to offset his tax cuts. So Congress will also have a say on tariffs because it will impact the budget. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. As President-elect Trump makes more announcements to key staff positions, more names are being added to the list of possible individuals to lead USDA. The latest, Greg Dowd. He served as the chief agricultural negotiator with the rank of ambassador in the office of the United States Trade Representative. Dowd grew up on a dryland wheat, grain, sorghum, soybean, swine, and cow-calf operation near Mankato, Kansas, which he remains involved with today. Besides Dowd, the list of potential USDA secretary candidates includes others we've reported on, including Kip Tom, the former U.S. envoy to the UN Agencies for Food and Agriculture, Sid Miller, the current Texas Agriculture Commissioner, Ted McKinney, the former USDA Undersecretary for Trade during the Trump administration, Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau Federation, former House Ag Committee Chairman Mike Conaway, and Ray Starling, a former USDA Chief of Staff. And we've put a wrap on export numbers for the 2024 fiscal year. Total ag exports coming in at $174.4 billion. That's a little better than experts had predicted, but export volumes were down 2% from the previous year.
We saw a lot of competition globally for our bulk products and decreasing unit values for those products. And so while we exported quite a bit, we received less money for those exports. And so we saw values go down.
Imports of foreign ag products grew by 5%, creating an ag trade deficit of almost $32 billion. We are expecting to learn soon a decision from a U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement dispute settlement panel regarding Mexico's plan to restrict GMO corn. However, according to Politico, Mexico's restrictions will likely stay in place even if the U.S. prevails. Experts say Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is expected to maintain restrictions on genetically modified corn, planting, and its use in tortillas. That's despite reports of a U.S. victory in the trade case. A Tufts researcher telling Politico that Mexico's restrictions have minimal impact on U.S. exports and are popular domestically. Now, Mexico's economy minister has confirmed his country and the U.S. received a preliminary ruling under the USMCA, but a final decision is expected December 14th. We're starting to see more snow move in areas of the West, while the Midwest will see more rain. Meteorologist Alyssa Heilman joins us with an update.
Starting with precipitation throughout the entirety of the United States, you're seeing that snow out west. You're seeing it in Idaho, up into Wyoming and Montana as well, even down into Utah and Nevada. This is Tuesday, 7 a.m. here. Most of the rest of the United States pretty clear right now, but as that system moves east over the United States, turns into rain as it moves into the Great Lakes and the Midwest region. Again, bringing some rain Wednesday night into Thursday for a large portion of the United States. Again, Great Lakes and even down into the south, maybe some thunderstorms down there, Georgia, Alabama. And then you're seeing that snow builds back up out into the west, portions of Oregon, California, Nevada, again seeing snow. That starts to move east again, but most of the area of the United States seeing some high pressure, seeing some clear conditions Saturday, 7 a.m. and then continuing into Sunday. Pretty clear weekend for most of the United States, just down there in some southern areas, seeing some rain that comes back around Sunday night. And Alex celebrating a beautiful day in the USA by doing a little harvest in the Dakotas. Since he shared this photo, Alex says he's wrapped up harvest for the year. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
A possible concern for animal feed. A new report says preliminary analysis of corn silage samples in the U.S. reveals a high increase in mycotoxin contamination compared to last year. And the study was conducted by Alltech, a company that specializes in animal nutrition. It claims more than 95% of crops today are contaminated with at least one mycotoxin, and usually two or more mycotoxins are produced by certain species of molds and are a concern for livestock producers as they can influence feed quality and subsequent animal health and performance. Researchers say the weather patterns for this year are a prime driver for change in corn silage mycotoxin risk. They add the precipitation over the upper Midwest started early and in many areas delayed planting or caused replanting, and the excess moisture can increase mold growth. Now, early indications are similar to last year, with risk increasing as you move east following the rainfall patterns. The Dow Jones started the week in positive territory while commodity markets faced downward pressure to start the week. We'll have more details coming up in Markets Now. And later we'll head back to the mountains of Appalachia to see how cleanup is progressing from the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Corn and wheat push lower to start the week. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us with an update on whether the recent rally has come to an end in Markets Now.
A lower day in the grains on Monday. Allison Thompson is back with analysis. And Allison, we didn't have a lot of news because of the holiday. And so how much of the pressure came from higher dollar, lower crude oil, things like that?
We had the Veterans Day holiday, so there wasn't a whole lot of new news. We had the USDA being closed, so we didn't get any export news this morning, or even our weekly export inspections. So pretty quiet. So obviously left to trade some of the other things out there, and outside markets definitely got it today. Crude being down pretty sharply and the dollar surging higher obviously didn't do us any favors for commodity markets.
Do you feel like some of these markets, maybe even soybeans, kind of hit some chart resistance, or did we see some farmers selling up at some of those levels, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are still taking advantage of the rally that we saw to finish the end of last week. So if they did have some working orders in or close to some of those levels, and obviously seeing some new highs on the board does spark some farmer selling. And I think we are probably seeing some hedge pressure come in across the board. But ultimately, now with the fundamental news behind us and obviously some big ticket items last week, the market's looking for something fresh. And if we are going to turn into a bullish market here, we need bullish news to keep them fed. And we started the week with little to no fresh news.
Obviously, we took it the worst. We did do some chart damage. Talk about what you see there.
In the Northern Hemisphere, the winter wheat crop is going into dormancy. And overall, despite all of the weather issues we talked about earlier in the year, that did give us some bullish run up in price. A lot of that's kind of been alleviated, especially here in the U.S. We've gotten some rain and some snow going through. So as of right now, the market's under the assumption that we're going to see a lot of this crop go into dormancy in ideal conditions, if not better, especially considering the last couple of years. So it's off to a decent start going into the winter months, and I think that's hindering things as well, specifically in the KC and Chicago wheat market. Now, interestingly, we did see some pretty good comeback action here to start the week. We came significantly back off the lows to close, which does show that we are probably seeing some of that selling drying up. Unfortunately, we still closed on new lows, but if we are going to see some bottoming action, we need more days with some technical action like we saw to start the week.
All right, thanks for your analysis, Allison Thompson with the Money Farm, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Looking at our temperatures across the entirety of the United States, we're seeing that cold air, mainly in the west. That's where we're seeing that snowfall, those snowy conditions. That's been present for quite some time and continuing with that cold air in the west. But most of the United States otherwise today, seeing these temperatures that are pretty mild, pretty normal for this time of year, seeing pretty mild, just right about 50s for a lot of the plains and Midwest, and then a little bit warmer, of course, in the south as well. Going into tomorrow morning, that's when we're seeing pretty much the same story, colder air that's out into the west, seeing some colder temperatures there, but again, some normally mild conditions for overnight temperatures or morning temperatures throughout the rest of the United States, just that cold to the west. And guess what? That's the same story for your highs tomorrow as well. Maybe a little bit warmer, but still seeing colder air to our west and pretty mild conditions for the rest of the United States, a little bit warmer again in the south, of course. Now we'll look at our jet stream on Tuesday. We're seeing a big area, a big ridge, and that's causing high pressure, lack of rainfall, those pretty mild temperatures throughout the central United States, or most of the United States, and then that trough that's digging down towards the west, bringing that snowfall, those colder temperatures, of course. Moving along, it continues to move east as we go into Wednesday, moves east again and continues to move east into Thursday, building back up a ridge, an area of high pressure on Thursday. And then again, behind it, we're going from ridge to trough to ridge to trough, again behind it in the west, seeing that trough that's building, that low pressure, bringing more snowfall on Saturday, moves east on Sunday, gives a little bit of a cutoff low there on Sunday, and then still seeing that low temperature there on Sunday. So continuing to look at our cities, we've got Ashley, Illinois, 56 is the high there, low 39. Now Amber, Oklahoma, 70, 55. Athena, Oregon, high 53, low of 44.
Dairy profit margins are on the rebound and in the black. We'll have the latest numbers next. And later, producers in North Carolina and eastern Tennessee are pushing for recovery as they work to overcome the fallout of Hurricane Helene. in the country. It took almost all year, but there is better news price-wise for dairy producers. Milk over feed margins are at historical highs and feed costs have softened. That's according to one analyst with the Daily Dairy Report. Higher margins could continue for the foreseeable future. Now, September margins reported by USDA's Dairy Margin Coverage Program hit an all-time high in September of $15.57 per hundredweight. That's $2 higher than the previous record hit just a month earlier. Experts say both high cheese prices and lower feed costs helped to boost the margin. September's all milk price of $25.50 per hundredweight was also one of the highest on record. The analyst says the last time that price level was hit was nearly 2 years ago. And more U.S. milk product is moving overseas. The National Milk Producers Federation says cooperatives working together secured 89 contracts last month. That added 11.2 million pounds of product to CWT-assisted sales this year. In milk equivalent, this is equal to more than 100 million pounds of milk on a milk fat basis. Now, the organization says the products will go to customers in Asia, Oceania, Middle East, North Africa, Europe, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. They will be shipped from now through June of next year. Now, before those products can get exported, they need to be produced here at home. We'll see how folks impacted by Hurricane Helene are dealing with recovery and how Tennessee is helping neighbors in North Carolina next. We're a few weeks from the devastating floods that hit East Tennessee and western North Carolina, but cleanup and relief effort goes on. The University of Tennessee's Institute of Agriculture is helping people impacted by this weather disaster by collecting and distributing supplies and even sharing a piece of land to get rid of flood debris. Charles Denny has more on these acts of generosity and community spirit.
Note that lowest power line, more than 20 feet up. That's how high the Nolichucky River rose over this area of Greene County after at least a foot of rain from Hurricane Helene added to an already flooded landscape.
And it flowed for about 24 hours.
The flood damaged a nursery and farmland operated by UT Ag Research. But at the nearby Ag Research Center, UT's Institute of Agriculture is donating this tract of land to the county, where flood debris can be deposited, keeping it out of a full landfill. Here a crew gets the site ready.
So I agreed to allow them to use a piece of property that had a pine stand on it. We clear cut the pine stand about 1.5 years ago, and it's a perfect spot for us to be able to help out our community and allow for a secondary option for debris drop off.
8 upper East Tennessee counties suffered flood damage. Several UT-TSU extension offices closed temporarily, but agents continued to work remotely, doing what they could to help in their communities.
The Greene County Extension Office became a collection and distribution center for donated items, where people who'd lost so much could find food and needed supplies. Angel Kosuda says she plans to spread these items back in her neighborhood.
If I know people that need stuff, I'll probably try and share with them. Like, that's kind of where we're at with it.
Extension agents worked long days and nights here and wherever they were needed in the county.
Our job is to really get those immediate needs that people have right now filled, and hopefully it sustains a little longer than immediate, but our goal here is to make sure that we are accessing those who cannot get out.
It is just incredible to see the amount of capacity that we have at this level to respond in a time of disaster. It's pretty cool to see all of our agents across all extension systems in the Southeast pulling together and getting supplies in and working with each other.
Back on the Knoxville campus, UT's College of Veterinary Medicine has collected more than 20,000 pounds of pet food and hay for animals and livestock owners in flooded counties.
A lot of times people will not leave those animals behind, and so if they have to evacuate, those dogs and cats are coming with them. And they may not have food to feed them, or some of their supplies have been swept away, so a lot of the livestock, their hay's been ruined.
UTIA relief efforts will go on for a while, as long as necessary. It may take years to recover from these floods, but the outpouring of kindness is inspiring. It's what we do in the volunteer state. We rebuild and we help each other. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clem Davis. Have a great day.